something I've been talking about since the beginning of the show. It's a conversation about what we have right now. I'm so excited because this is exactly what we need right now. After fresh off the elections, you want to know what the recommendations are and what to do. So we're talking recommendations to improve the future electoral processes in Lesotho. If you remember, on the 7th of October, the Kingdom of Lesotho held the National Assembly elections following an invitation by the Kingdom of Lesotho. The EU, which is the European Union, deployed its first ever electoral observer mission, which is the EOM, to Lesotho to undertake the independent, impartial assessment of all aspects of the electoral process. In its preliminary statement presented by the chief observer, Ignacio Cora, on the 9th of October in Maseru, the EU, which is the EU's observer mission, noted that National Assembly elections have been well run and conducted in a peaceful atmosphere. Meanwhile, just yesterday, the EU observer mission chief observer, that is Ignacio, presented the mission's final report with 21 recommendations to improve future electoral processes in Lesotho. This is why this morning we have invited in our studio Deputy Chief Observer Armin Rabitsch from the European Union to take us through why it is important to improve the future electoral processes in Lesotho. Good morning and welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Listen, without wasting any more time, I want to ask this one because we talked about this obviously off the air. I just want to understand why is it important for the EU to have observer missions in different countries? Because obviously we can say, because for instance, we've been having a lot of elections since 1966, right? Until today. Only this year are we saying this is the first time EU is deploying the observer mission in the country. Why is it important though?
Well, the European Union has been standing in for human rights and strengthening democracy worldwide. So to date, over 160 election observation missions have been deployed to over 60 countries worldwide. So it's part of the foreign policy concept of the European Union to stand in for human rights, strengthening democracy, and that's part of its identity inside its boundaries, but also outside as part of its development cooperation program and its foreign policy.
And then yesterday during the press conference, one of the things that was stated was that youth participation in elections is a bit down. You know, what are some of the activities that the youth can be engaged in order to feel the need to participate in elections in the future?
Well, you know, to vote is to decide about your future. Sure. Not to vote is giving this decision to others. Yeah, so I and we as the European Union and the Election Observation Mission, we encourage the youth to actively participate in elections, and the first step in that is to go and register, because in Lesotho you have to actively register to vote in order to be able to vote on election day. So it's on the youth to go and register with the ISC. It's the young people can get active with the political parties, they can get engaged in civil society organizations, and on the other hand, it's on the political parties to engage with the youth, to advocate that they go and register and support them in the election and in the campaign. And as an institution, it's the Independent Electoral Commission which is in charge to educate the electorate and to educate the people in Lesotho how to register, where to register, when to register, and where to go and vote. So it's all the institutions in the electoral framework which are engaged to beef up youth participation in elections.
Now, on behalf of the youth, right? The youth, as we're talking about it, we're not a very, interested, group to in political stuff in elections. We're just not interested in that. Is there maybe a way with EU to engage the youth in order to make them understand the importance of it all? Apart from the fact that the IEC and the political parties are already supposed to do that, can something be done maybe by the EU to say, hey youth, listen, you need to stand up now, let's find a way in order to engage you in politics? Because now obviously with the history of, we're going to get in politics, nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to change, we're seeing the grown-ups in politics more than the youth, is there something that the EU maybe can do to sort of alleviate that?
The European Union has been supporting Lesotho in the past in curricular development and civic education, voter education programs, and it will do so in the future. Yeah, so the follow-up to the recommendations of the election observation mission will be a core part of future EU-Lesotho dialogues with the government. Now, it is on the Lesotho government to pick up the recommendations and see what can be done, but the EU stands by to support and be ready to contribute. Yeah, but the main question is, how can the awareness among the youth that voting is about creating their own future can be strengthened? And here, educational institutions like schools are key, that people understand, okay, elections is part of our democratic practice, and we need to actively practice this in order to strengthen our democracies. And like the chief observer said yesterday, only a healthy democracy is strong enough to wither the changing society and the changing situation we are in worldwide. It's not only in Lesotho, it's everywhere, and the strong voter turnout is also a sign for healthy democracy.
And I love the fact that you're talking about the recommendations, because often, more than not, you find that recommendations are done, but they're never really put into effect. You know, what are some of the ways and, you know, I'd say, ways of making sure that the recommendations are being implemented by the country?
Well, this Friday we have a roundtable discussion with key players in Lesotho to discuss exactly that, how to follow up on these recommendations, how to implement them. So the report is out there, it's on the website, it's available in Lesotho language. Now it is, how do we implement it, and how can we support as well that implementation? And as said, there's a dialogue of the EU with the Lesotho government, so the follow-up to the recommendations will be part and parcel of this dialogue. And then in 2 years' time, the chief observer will come back on a follow-up visit and see, okay, where do we stand on the implementation of the recommendations, and if it could be also a stimulus in between elections to follow up on recommendations before the next elections. Because the best time to implement electoral reforms on elections is after an election and not just before an election. Because
it has to be after, so that it takes time to sort of, for people to understand, and we sort of grasp what the recommendations are.
Exactly, because if you start reforming before an election, you know, there's too much political heat in there. Everybody is already in the campaign modus.
And also, we don't have time. We're just like, we don't have the time to do this. Let's talk about the main things that you know, the EU has picked, that the IEC or Lesotho should take into cognizance going into the next local general elections. What are some of the main things that you said, you know, this, out of everything else, we feel like these are the main and key factors that need to be taken into cognizance?
Yeah, out of the 21 recommendations, we have selected 7 key recommendations.
Okay.
So, and as I said, and I emphasize that, you know, it's really key to strengthen voter education.
True,
you know, there was a budgetary constraint, so the voter education was restricted to 3 weeks in the past election. So for the local government elections, it's key to inform the electorate. Elections are taking place, people need to register, and they need to know where is their constituency, where is their polling station. So, second point, voter registration. Yeah, so the Electoral Commission should tell everyone to go and register, to beef up voter registration ahead of the elections. And then the IEC can also pick up on transparency. Yeah, publish all the polling station results online. You can request the political parties and the candidates to be more transparent about what is the money they're getting from and what they are spending. So that's also information to the electorate, that they understand, okay, who is behind the political party, where's the money coming from. So transparency and accountability in electoral campaign finance is also key to give the electorate a clear choice for whom to vote for.
That is very important, because it contributes to, obviously, the next question I would have is that, obviously, in the report, you mentioned that unlimited campaign spending contributed to uneven playing field among political parties and candidates. What more could be done by the IEC on top of the disbursement of campaign funding, and allowed an allocation of equal time slots on state media for campaigns? What other things can maybe be done just to so that sort of, like you were saying, even the playground, that everybody feels a little bit, you know, that, okay, we have an equal, you know, sort of say. If we're saying the budget for campaigning is this much, then it stays like that for all political parties, because we all don't have we have different financial muscles, hey?
Yeah, when it comes to campaigning, it's really key to have transparency in the process. You know, everyone should know who is spending what and where's the money coming from and on what is the money spent. And this is the key in the current legislation for the IEC to oversight. Yeah, and it can draft and pass secondary legislation, bylaws or directives. Yeah, how this should be done, how the transparency can be strengthened, that that's open information to everyone, journalists, media, but also the voters. Yeah, so it's on the IEC also to be proactive in issuing directives in this respect, and then overseeing as the main body responsible for the oversight of campaigning how this is done. Yeah, and then it can be on the IEC website, it can be on the party websites that there is a transparency in that. And the other side of the coin is the accountability, yeah, that parties need to deliver audited accounts about the money
What
they spend and the money they received from the IEC. So that's key in this process.
Because most political parties are probably coming into the elections just for the money, to say, okay, we're probably going to get a certain amount of money just to campaign, and then they don't even do enough with or exhaust all the money. And when it comes to media, because also private media at times, they feel like, political A, B, and D are, going to do proper for me. They have enough revenue that I need, and it's very possible that they could be lenient towards political parties that are a bit more financially, stable, because they will be paying for advertisements, they'll be paying for, placement on radios, and how do we not balance that out as well? Because also that appetite to make money is coming in, but at the same time want a fair playground. How do we not balance that out?
It's key for the media to provide equitable and balanced coverage of all political parties. Yeah, so that makes a multi-party democracy lively, that everybody gets a chance to be heard. Yeah, necessarily richer parties probably get more airtime, they get more advertising space, and they are more heard. But it's also important that the smaller parties, independent candidates, have space in the media and can be heard, and there's an equitable distribution of space for the smaller parties and all political parties in the campaign.
Now, when there's no rush, elections done, no one is campaigning, no one is fighting in between the years now, when we're getting ready down to see what political party is in power doing what. What should be happening between political parties, the IEC, as well as the voters? What should be now happening throughout that period when everybody's just sort of settled and we have time to now think and do things properly?
Very good and important question. Yeah, probably the first and key moment now is to reflect on the previous election, do some lessons learned for the political parties, for the IEC, to understand, okay, what went well and what can be done better. Yeah, so it was, as you said, it was overall a very well conducted election, but there's always room for improvement, and our societies change, our democracies change, so we can do better the next time. So it's on the IEC to look into the aspects where they can build up capacity in their legal department, in that campaign oversight and party department, to have more capacity inside the institution, to be more proactive in this respect. For the political parties, they can understand, okay, why do we have over 60 political parties registered in this country? Is that necessary, or can it be pooled? Can there be less and stronger parties, or is this part of this multi-party democratic spirit in Lesotho? So they can also figure out, okay, where should the funding coming from? How do we engage the youth, especially, or in the campaign? How we improve the representation of women in the political parties, and how we also include persons with disabilities in the electoral process. How do we increase the accessibility of the polling stations for persons with disabilities who are homebound? Yeah, so these are all aspects which can be thought of now, and then with expertise which is in the country and outside the country, beef up right on time for the next and future elections.
That would really be an amazing. I love that. I know this was not part of the questions, but I would love to know Because the aspect of social media also plays a very big role. It plays a very big role in elections and how vote turnout becomes, because there's fake news that circulate on social media, there's news that are credible that circulate on social media now. To distinguish between all of that, I know part of the report had a little bit on social media, touch on social media and how that also affects, you know, the election turnout. As we're talking about this now, the youth are very social media frenzy. We're here. We're tweeting, we're Instagramming, we're TikToking, all of that. You know, how can we now use that also to sort of lure in the youth to want to be a part of, you know, elections through social media?
Very good that you mention it, because the European Union election observation missions, they are now also including a social media expert. Yeah, so there's for the first time in this country, also social media monitoring was conducted by the social media analyst and a team of 3 social media monitors. So we have had a better understanding of the role of the social media in the campaign. And as you said, it's playing a key role, especially for the youth who are engaged on social media, get information from there. So there's a challenge and there's a risk. Yeah. So the challenge is that, and the opportunity which there is okay, you can get the information about elections out to the youth through social media directly to them. Yeah, so it's a big opportunity.
Yes.
But there's also risk that fake news, deep fakes can be transported through the social media unchecked. Yeah? Because there's no journalist behind it, there's no media house behind it, so anyone on social media can spread news. Yeah, so it's important that there's also fact checking, which is currently not available in Lesotho.
And also, just like I think political parties having their own official social media pages, because everyone can come up and create a fake Facebook page for a political party and then starts, you know, putting out false information out there. Would that also be a good recommendation?
Absolutely. You know, it's important that political parties, the ISC, all the institutions involved in elections, they are becoming more familiar with social media. They use it more, and they have a full understanding about the opportunities which are there on social media. But there is also this necessity to do this fact-checking and to be sure that there's an alert mechanism if some false news is circulating. Yeah, but it is a great chance to inform the youth better through Twitter, through Insta, and inform them about elections, where to vote, where's the polling stations, how to do it, and motivate them to go and register and to participate in the next election.
Yeah, because the very same youth are the ones that are going to tell their parents now, did you see so and so is doing this, that is happening, so the information starts spreading, and with the elderly, once you've told them something, it goes. There's nothing you can say apart from what they already know. Quickly before I let you go, let's talk the reports. Where can people access it? You mentioned that social media, there's links, there's websites. You know, where can people access the report? Because some would feel like, you know what, I would want to be a part of this process. Now that it is the first time ever that the EU has put this together, what now could be a way forward, so that when they're coming into effect, people are aware of what is happening. So where can we get the reports?
So the European Union Election Observation Mission to Lesotho 2022 has a website, and we distributed the report link on Twitter, on Facebook. So you can go on Facebook, on our Facebook site, you see the link there to our final report, which is available in English language, but also in Sesotho. So that's where you find it, and otherwise you can just contact us with a press officer, and we can distribute it to you electronically.
Beautiful. Listen, thank you very much for coming through.
Before
I let you go, what do you want people to sort of take, especially the youth, what should they understand before election period? What should they take up as patriotism to them, you know, for the youth listening right now?
You know, I want to emphasize participating in elections is deciding about your future and the future of your country. If you want to be strong, you go and vote. If you want your country to be strong, go and vote.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for coming through this morning.